So I just got ganked by a level 90 shaman. He popped every single CD and just about global to me. But anyway, thanks, Millie. Uh, we're back in the game now, and I'm just gonna talk about why I think PvP marksmanship is dead in Mr. Pandaria, and why we're gonna be going survival. Basically, if we look at the talent tree, we've got two talents here that were key things missing for the survival spec. Everything else was there, but there were two things missing: the silencing shot and readiness. They're the two things that survival hunters didn't have in Cataclysm, and that's why they couldn't properly operate in an arena. Now, these two things being available for every spec is huge. That means that every spec can be viable if you want to play them. But the reason I think survival is going to be the main spec for Cataclysm is this. There's a trap buff that or a debuff called entrapment that you can proc on enemies when you drop a freezing trap or a snake trap. It lasts for 4 seconds and it's a root. That's the prime way that hunters kind of kite their enemies apart from disengage. So without that, all you got really to kite with is freezing trap, which is just a slow on like a 30-second cooldown, 22-second cooldown, which shares the cooldown with ice trap, which is your prime form of CC. So without that, basically you're going to be using your CC to kind of try and kite people as a marksmanship hunter, which isn't going to work properly, right? So I'm thinking the only real spec that's going to be viable is going to be survival hunters, because survival is the only spec currently on beta with the entrapment buff. So with that said, how a hunter's going to operate, it's just going to be the same basically as the current marksmanship hunter. The only difference is the way that they deal damage. Instead of using steady shot, you use cobra shot. Instead of using chimera shot, you use explosive shot, and basically everything is the same. You just deal a bit more damage over time instead of dealing damage in big nukes. So it's more sustained damage. You deal about the same amount of damage. And the burst will probably be about the same, but you won't have those big kind of chunks of health that marksmanship hunters can take away. You'll just have that slow rot, somewhat like a warlock, for instance. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. Yeah, I think that's what's going to happen in Mr. Pandaria. The talents are kind of shaping up that way, and that's what a lot of the top hunters like Brain Deadly, he's predicting that hunters are definitely going to be going survival, and I think Zumio was saying that too. He's a pretty handy hunter too, so yeah, I don't think that's going to be too much of a change. It's just going to be kind of swapping out Chimera shot for explosive shot and steady shot for serpent cobra shot. So yeah, it's not too much of a change really. So yeah, there's going to be some new spells obviously, but it's just going to be changing the spec basically, and I don't think it's going to be too big of a deal.